to Reverend Joel to lead us into the first section here. Welcome.
Good morning, everybody. It's been a while since I've been able to be in this group, which is so nice to be here. I don't think I've shaved since I last saw you, by the way. I hope everybody had good holidays. I know this has been a crazy week, but I hope everybody had good holidays. We spent a week during the holidays. We rented a house on the beach, literally just on the beach down in Virginia Beach. And we had a great time. And I have to say, the most special part of that time for me was not just seeing family and friends, but I got to hang out a lot with my son, Rafi. You guys know Rafi. And if you're a parent or guardian or you're bringing up kids, you know just how special that time is when you can just have real, unguarded, wonderful time, especially with teens as their lives start to take a different direction. And what Rafi and I did is we watched a bunch of Star Wars movies, and then we watched The Mandalorian. Has anybody seen The Mandalorian, by the way? A few of you. It's so good. But we watched the movies leading up to it. We watched Rogue One, Star Wars, A New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi, and then we watched this. And Rafi's one of these people that's so into Star Wars that he knows all the names of all the little animals that run across the screen and the backstory of everybody. I told him he knows more about the history of the empire than he does the history of this country, which is not necessarily a great thing, but he's so into it. He even has a whole set of lightsabers, and these are not the like ones that the little kids have. These are ones that are really expensive. They're made for adults, and he has a bunch of them. So this is a picture. Does this show? So we were sitting, that's him, and I was sitting right here watching it. And right there, you can't see it, but that is the beach, literally. So it was like this heavenly time. And then Rafi was showing off his lightsaber skills. I think I'm blocking it somehow. So that was really fun. It's always nice to just connect, and that's what we do here on Sunday. I don't have a joke this week. I didn't feel like, it just didn't feel like a Sunday for a joke, so I didn't do one. This has been a really interesting, very challenging week, I think, in many ways. I know there was a Zoom call on Thursday, and I'm sure that was very helpful to put things maybe into perspective, or at least to open ourselves up to spirit during this time. And it's such a challenging time. History's filled with challenging times. We can look back at history and just see how challenging things have been, over the years, especially at high points. But this is our challenging time, and this feels very personal. But one thing is true during all of these challenging times is that what we in our philosophy call principle, that's principle with a capital P, or truth, that principle remains true throughout all of it. We can have the experiences around us, but that doesn't change principle. Principle is always principle. Truth is always truth. There is only one power we teach, and how we use that power depends on us. So today we're going to talk about that. We're going to concentrate on principle with the capital P, which I think we especially need to do right now during difficult times. It's so great to go back and to remember. And as Neil mentioned, we are going during the month of January, 4 Sundays in January, we and pretty much most, if not all of the centers for spiritual living around the United States and around the world always go back and delve into the first 4 chapters of the Science of Mind. And we do one a week, and they are the thing itself, the way it works, what it does, and how to use it. And so I get the first one, week one, the thing itself. And if you read the description in the email about what today's talk is about, it says that today we have the goal to talk about two things. One is to remember the foundational principles upon which our faith is built. And two, to delve into the many traditions which Science Mind has used as a springboard and delve into the deep truth behind all of these teachings, that all is one and always has been. And again, that's what we do every single year, and it's important. Why do we do this? Because these 4 chapters contain what are literally the cornerstones of our philosophy and how we live our life. I was reading this interview with Julia Cameron. She wrote The Artist's Way. She was doing an interview for her new book, which is The Listening Path, which is awesome. It goes on sale day after tomorrow. And in the interview, she was talking about the tools of The Artist's Way. She has 3 main tools. You write morning pages every day, you take an artist date, and you do a daily walk. And that's in The Artist's Way, but it's also at the beginning of all of her other books. She starts every book with those tools. And she mentioned in this article that she was criticized because she puts in these repetitive tools in every single one of the books. And her reply was so great. She said this. She said, I supposed that was supposed to be an insult, but I thought it was perfect. Tools should be simple and repetitive. When we use those same tools, we awaken a part of ourselves, which creates patience, trust, and safety. And that's why we go back and we look at the principles of the science of mind again at the beginning of every year, so that we start the year using these principles, simple and repetitive, which, as Julia Cameron says, is perfect. So I'm going to actually talk about the second one first. Of those 2 things to talk about, I'm going to talk about the second one first, and then we'll end on the basic teachings that are the foundational principles. The second one was to delve into the many traditions which Science of Mind has used as a springboard and delve into the deep truth behind the teachings. Ernest Holmes was very clear. He's clear as a bell in every one of his books that Science of Mind is a synthesis of religion, philosophy, psychology, science, truth, the arts. He says, anywhere you can find truth, we will add it into Science of Mind. Truth is everywhere, and it's not the property or ownership of just one faith or one discipline. It is everywhere, and we can find it everywhere. This is especially true in religion. There's been a lot of debate over the years whether Science of Mind or religious science is a religion or a philosophy. When you get into, if you take ministerial school, sometimes that comes up and there are long debates, and then people say, well, in this book, Ernest Holmes said this, and in this book, Ernest Holmes said that. And the truth is, I don't think it matters. It doesn't matter if it's a religion, if it's a philosophy. It's just a synthesis of everything rolled into one. It's an explanation that works for me, and I think for many of us. But at the core of religion, there are these ideas and concepts in common, and you can find that very easily. There's a little book called Oneness by Jeffrey Moses, and the subtitle is Great Principles Shared by All Religions. It's been around for a long, long time. I'm not sure if it's still in print. But he says, in fact, almost all principles that are associated with religious thought are shared by every religion, such as the Golden Rule, love thy neighbor, honor thy father and mother, speak truth. It's more blessed to give than receive. And he said, these principles and others are common to all religions and are similarly expressed in each, which is what this little book does. And if you are interested in exploring that even further, there's this gigantic, very heavy book called World Scripture, a comparative anthology of sacred texts, in which this, I don't know if you can see, these are the people who were on the committee to examine the great principles of every religion and how every religion expresses it in their text. So you have not just Christianity and Judaism and Islam, but Jainism, Zoroastrianism, Baha'i, Confucianism, native Japanese religions, Islam, and on and on. And so we can see that there are these ideas that are universal. But bringing it to us, Ernest Holmes actually kind of did the same thing, where he talked about the principles of science of mind, where he got them, but how they manifest in different religions. And this, what they did in like this 1,000-page heavy brick, he did in this little itty bitty tiny pamphlet. And this is so much more powerful, if you ask me. It's I don't even know if this is still available either, but it's called What Religious Science Teaches. And in this, he says that religious science is not a personal opinion, nor is it a special revelation. It is the result of the best thought of the ages. It borrows much of its light from others, but in doing so, robs no one, for truth is universal. And then he goes on to create to print here what he calls the principles of the Declaration of Principles for Religious Science, and shows how every single principle is backed up in the world's religions. So we are a philosophy that brings in these universal truths together. But what Ernest Holmes did that was so brilliant and so revolutionary is that he did synthesize them in a way that you didn't have to read all of this to you could really understand it in a very simple way. And he also made it usable for us. He did it so that they weren't just these pie in the sky principles, but rather these were principles that were not just cerebral, but they were within us. They were something so close to us that they are the very breath that we breathe, that we can use these principles to make our life better. And that's the underscore of what Science of Mind is. But I also wanted to take a moment and say that Science of Mind then, Ernest Holmes' brilliant synthesizing of it and making it so accessible and understandable, then in turn influenced others, influenced so many people. The Science of Mind had a big impact on Joseph Campbell, the great mythologist who wrote The Power of Myth and other books that has been so influential for so many people over the decades. A copy of The Science of Mind was on the desk of Albert Einstein. When I took a tour of Graceland in Memphis, and there was Elvis's desk, right on his desk was a copy of The Science of Mind. Norman Vincent Peale, the Christian minister who wrote The Power of Positive Thinking, which is still a huge selling book, and really was a book that started the whole Christian positive thinking movement. Credits The Science of Mind as a book that really taught him and opened him up to it. And in fact, they indeed met, Ernest Holmes and Norman Vincent Peale, and were friendly with each other. And The Science of Mind also influenced somebody else very important in our life, George Lucas. George Lucas there's a great picture, and I was trying to find it. I have it somewhere in some file somewhere, a picture that from a newspaper that I got in the 1990s, where George Lucas is standing in front of a bookcase of the books, his most important books. And right there, right behind him, is The Science of Mind right on the shelf. And I was like, wow, that's so amazing. George Lucas. And you can see it when you watch the movies, you can see that influence, not just of George Lucas, but really of all these movies that really, that talk about these principles. So we were influenced, Science of Mind was influenced, Ernest Holmes was influenced by all of this truth. He then took it, synthesized it, and then it, in turn, his synthesis influenced so much of the culture today. Even if you watch episodes of Oprah Winfrey or many shows, you certainly can see the influence of Science of Mind and Ernest Holmes everywhere. So that's really great for us to realize that we belong to a philosophy or a center that teaches a philosophy that really has done a tremendous amount of good work in the world. Oh, that dog is so cute, Antonia. Oh my gosh, how cute is that? The other thing that we were going to talk about today, though, which is the first point, is to remember the foundational principles upon which our foundation is built. And that's really great. That's the meat and potato of the January teachings that we always talk about. And the truth is, those 4 chapters that we look at and discuss, one each week for the 4 weeks of January, they really repeat themselves, to be totally honest. Ernest Holmes was somebody who liked to repeat something over and over so that we could really get it. We could, as the saying goes, we could grok it fully. And so what you're going to do is you're going to hear me talk about it, and then for the next 3 weeks, other people are going to talk about it, which is so valuable to hear different people's interpretations or different people's language of how of what these principles are. And so I'm going to do it in my way. And I've actually taught this before, but this is January, and it's important to go back to the basics. And I have really narrowed the Science of Mind basic principles into what I call the Science of Mind 1, 2, 3. You can, when people say to you, what is it that your group believes, you can remember it in terms of 1, 2, 3. It's that simple. Let's start. Number one. Number one stands for oneness. Oneness. As I mentioned earlier in this book, Ernest Holmes lays out what he calls our declaration of principles. These are the principles that Science of Mind or religious science teaches. Principle number 1, the very first line, we believe in God, the living Spirit Almighty, one indestructible, absolute, and self-existent cause. This one, capital O1, manifests itself in and through all creation. Very first, the bedrock of our entire philosophy, our view of life, the way that we walk through the world begins with this one idea, oneness, not duality. And it is so easy to slip into duality in a world when you turn on the television and see what appears to be this dualistic thinking. Everywhere we can see evidence of it until we change and go back into the principles and put on the glasses of religious science or Science of Mind philosophy, metaphysics, and remember that there are not 2 powers. There is not good and evil. There is not this or that. There's one power, one presence, one mind. It is God, what we call God the good. There is just one. And throughout this book, he says it over and over and over again. For example, he says, the sacred books of all peoples declare that God is one, a unity from which nothing can be excluded. Now, let me just pause there for a second. That's a pretty heavy thing. When you just take that, you could just spend the next month thinking about that first half of a sentence, and it would rock and change your world. A unity from which nothing can be excluded. Now, I don't know about you, but there are a lot of things that I would like to exclude from that oneness. There are a lot of things that I wished I could exclude. There are things that I would love to create oneness in my own way. I would love to make oneness look exactly the way I want it to look. But that's not oneness. Oneness is everything, of which nothing can be excluded, and to which nothing can be added. We can take another month with that half of the sentence, that there is so much that everything that is already is. So we cannot exclude anything, but neither is there anything to add because it all already exists. That's remarkable. That's unbelievable. And that idea, that first thing, science of mind 1, 2, 3, first principle one, oneness, is so pervasive in our teaching that that is always where we should start, and that is always where we can end. And by the way, if you watch those Star Wars movies, there's a little thing called the Force. And if you watch, we just watched them all in a row, and along with the Mandalorian, they talk about the Force as oneness, that the Force is the energy that is all things and everything, and that the Force is available to all people. And the Force, and one of the things Ernest Holmes talks about so much, is that this one power can be used by us in any way we wish. We can use it for anything. Often in the New Age world, we want to say, well, if you understand the one power, then we will use it for flowers and beauty and lovely things. But people can use the same principle, consciously or subconsciously, for anything they want, which certainly is evident throughout the world. In the Star Wars world, which mirrors our own, you can use it for good or the dark side. You have Luke Skywalker or you have Darth Vader. It's much more black and white in the movies. But what's interesting too is the lightsabers have different lights, and the lights reflect the motivation you have in using the Force. So I think that's fascinating. Oneness, that's how much this philosophy has gone out into the world. So science of mind 1, 2, 3. 1, oneness. 2 principles. To understand oneness, Ernest Holmes divided it into two things: love and law. Love is what it is. Law is how it works. Oneness is love, perfect love, nothing else. That's what he said. Perfect love, perfect peace. Ty, in the chant he was singing, talked about being immersed in peace. That is the idea, that is the feeling of oneness. But how does this oneness work? So oneness, the creator, how does it work? Through the creative principle. And you can't really separate the two because the thing itself and how it acts is the same thing. So love, he called it love and law. Love is the nature of the one. Law is how it works. He said that the law of one is as natural to our life as the law of gravity. It's just a law. It's as natural to us as the natural laws, because it is the law of everything. This is how everything works. It shows that love and law shows that oneness isn't just some concept, like I said, but it's actually usable. We use the one through the creative process. Ernest Holmes says, if a philosophy doesn't change your life, then what does it matter? Science of mind is nothing if not amazingly practical. You start wherever you are, and you can begin to use the very principles of oneness through the creative process in your life to make your life better starting today. That is amazing. So science of mind 1, 2, 3. 1 is oneness, 2 is love and law, and 3 is how law works. If love is what it is and law is how it works, the way to explain how it works is in 3. Ernest Holmes uses the very simple concept of seed, soil, plant. That's the creative process. We begin with an idea, plant it into the soil of law, and receive the plant or the manifestation. Idea, soil into the law of life, and it comes back as a manifestation. This can happen, this can manifest externally, and it can manifest internally. 1, 2, 3, oneness, which is explained as love and law, and it works by seed, soil, plant. 1, 2, 3. Learning how to master this, how to use the creative process is what you're going to hear over the next 3 weeks. You're going to learn more about the how and how it happens. And really, truthfully, any single class that you take in religious science, science of mind, Centers for Spiritual Living, is really about the how to master using that creative principle, how to master using that one, the creative one. But today, since we're overviewing it and we're starting the process, it all begins with oneness, love and law, that manifests through the creative process, seed, soil, plant. Science of mind is the culmination of all truth that came before, translated in a way that we can understand and use it. And in turn, it has influenced me. It has influenced many of you. It has influenced the entire world. You can see the science of mind everywhere. We teach there is one creative power, which uses the creative process to help us create our life and life experience. You know, back when I was sitting watching those Star Wars movies with Raffi over Christmas, one of the movies has a character that is a Jedi Knight. That's like our practitioners. Practitioners are the Jedi Knights of our philosophy. And this Jedi Knight kept repeating one phrase over and over and over. He would say, I am in the force is in me. I am in the force is in me. And that just struck me, that somebody on screen would say that in such a way. I had forgotten that when I first saw the movie. I am in the force is within me. And I paused the movie and I looked at Raffi and I said, Raffi, that's what we believe. And I explained it a little bit. And I talked about that in the movie, it's called the force. We call it one mind or the one or the creative power, whatever we want to call it. But it's the same thing. And we talked about the idea that it's within us and it is us and it's all around us. And his eyes just got really big as I was explaining this, because I was suddenly explaining it in a way that he could really understand it. And when I was done, he looked at me and he goes, Dad, science of mind is awesome. That's why we study the basics every year, especially in times like now, right now, to remind ourselves of who we are and why we're here and how we can be a positive light in this world. Because the world needs us. Ernest Holmes famously said in one of his last sermons that he gave, he said, give me 1,000 people who believe what we do and we can change the world forever. We are these people. This is the time. And we say yes to being the vessels of light through the oneness that is love and law, using the creative process of seed, soil, plant. It is awesome. And so it is. Let's bring this into treatment. Take a breath. Think back to when Joe was just giving us that beautiful guided meditation. That simple practice of breathing takes us so deep. And we go to that place of oneness where it all begins, the cornerstone of our philosophy. When you read chapter 1, it is all about that oneness, one power, one presence, one mighty, mighty creator that has created all life, including the life of everyone here listening to these words. And as we recognize that truth and as we connect with that deeply, we say, since we are Jedi Knights for science of mind in the world, I am one with the one, and the one is in me. I am one with the one, and the one is in me. That can become our mantra, our Jedi mantra out into the world, as we know that we are bright lights in a world that needs it. And the lighter that we shine our light for ourselves, the brighter the beacon we are for others to see. So right now, as we start the year the way we always do, by going back to the basics of the basics of the basics, oneness, love and law, creative process, we say yes to learning it all over again and manifesting it in a new and even greater way in our lives this year, more than ever. It doesn't matter what the temporary existence or experience is outside of us, because inside of us, we are connected to the eternal truth that there is one power. Science of mind, 1, 2, 3, we are connected fully. And with this as our truth, I know that we are each guided and directed mightily to live our greatest and brightest life, starting with this breath, and then this breath, and so on. And we release this into the soil of law, and we know that it comes back as manifest for each one of us right here, right now. And together we say, and so it is.